advanced recruiting techniques, land the most desirable talent, launch your company towards massive success. This is the Higher Power Radio Show with Rick Girard.
Today we are talking about taking an honest look at your hiring record. So as we all know, data does not lie, and the success or failure of your hiring is really a direct result of your interview process. So everything from the messaging, the experience, from the first contact to the way the interview is conducted determines your hiring outcome. And here's a little tip, guys. It's not about the money. So we're going to talk about a shift in mindset that is needed to understand that people have options and that your company is not as special as you think. You need to stand out, and the way you do this is by providing growth. Today's quote: you have to create a track record of breaking your old mold, or at least other people's idea of what your mold is. Any idea who said that? Mr. David Patterson.
I want to say William Hurt.
You are,
but I might be wrong.
You are spot on. And I'm Rick Girard, and welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show. Our mission is to help entrepreneurs and hiring managers avoid costly hiring mistakes by identifying specific problem and providing proven tactical solutions to help your company win the right hire. We share insights from top-performing entrepreneurs, disruptors, and industry experts like our guest today, Mr. David Patterson. He is the founder and managing director of the Kineta Group and the SAPrecruiter.com, and he's also a trainer and a coach and hosts a huge Facebook recruiting group on Facebook as well. So David is a member of the Stanford Rose, which is a top 10 ranked worldwide retained search firm, and he is the SAP Recruiter. His mission is to help empower your enterprise through hiring rock star talent. David, welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show today.
Hey, thank you, Rick, and it's a pleasure to be on. It's a long introduction, by the way. I have a lot of titles.
I know, you have way too many titles. I had to shim them down. Would you like to add a couple more?
On the breaker of chains.
The bringer of doom.
Yeah. The mother of dragons. Yeah, there we go. But thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. So today we're going to cover why it is important to really dissect your hiring record. It's kind of like your prison record, right? We're going to get an understanding of what success should look like, and then we're going to help you evolve your own unique process into an experience that attracts the right people. Sound good?
That sounds perfect.
Awesome. Let's do it. So why is it important that you take an honest look at your hiring record? I mean, let's just state the obvious here.
Because you need to be aware of the pain that you're in. So the way I look at it, and actually this actually goes to how to improve your own hiring record and hire the people that you want. There's a thing called habituation. Usually, as a manager or a leader, anybody who's ever run a business can attest to this. I know I've been there. When I first started my business, I had all these dreams and hopes, and I thought everybody I hired would be a superstar. And a couple years in, I was jaded. And it got to the point where, I figured, well, if I hire somebody, I crossed my fingers, well, maybe this guy might work out. And that's a problem. And so I think if you take an honest look at your hiring record and you realize that of the last 10 people you brought on, 20 or whatever it is, how many people were mishires, but even more than that, are the ones who stuck, how many, if you had to rehire them, would you actually not rehire? And if they were to quit, you'd probably breathe a sigh of relief. And for most leaders, it's probably a majority of the people that you do hire.
You know, I think you're spot on. It's indicative of what ends up happening is a lot of entrepreneurs will essentially hire because they have a need as opposed to hiring the right person.
That's 100% right. And
yeah.
So what happens is that you get used to that reality, and so you don't have the emotional leverage needed to radically change your hiring process. I think if you take a real honest look, and the effect your hiring has on your leadership career or your company or what have you, that'll provide some of the emotional leverage to start doing things a little bit differently. Of course, we can look at data too, but to start looking at your recruitment process a little bit differently, so you can start hiring the people that you want, or that would actually make your company better or boost your leadership career.
Yeah, you know what? And you bring up a good point there. I think what ends up happening is we don't put enough thought into that. We just don't. Everybody kind of thinks, well, hiring is just kind of easy. You just find people, you talk to them, and you think, oh, okay, well, you want to join me? You go, yeah, sure, I need a job, I'll join you. There's really not a whole lot of thought that goes in past that, right?
100%. And here's the thing is that if you want to hire differently, you have to, I guess you could say, take a risk. You have to drive away the people that you don't want, look at things radically differently, and for a lot of people, that's risk. So if you have to be willing to basically say, look, I've had enough hiring the way I've been hiring, do things differently. But if you develop that skill set to have that honest discussion with yourself, that actually, and we'll talk about this more later, it's actually something that you can do within your own hiring process as you're trying to sell your product, or in this case, your company as an employer, to maybe a software developer, let's say, or whoever you're trying to hire, trying to sell your product as an employer to a very hot market. And if you're like everybody else, you will have to develop that same skill set to be able to highlight the pain that those candidates or employees are in, to then kind of break them out of their life and their habituation, to get them to take that massive action to go with you as opposed to somebody else. So that's in a lot of my work in the Kinetic Group, as well as a trainer. It's one thing I've really honed in on the last few years, is how to figure out ways to highlight that pain. I know you talk about that a lot as well, Rick, in your own training.
I sure do.
Yeah, how to highlight that pain, but you also have to be willing to do that within yourself, because you otherwise you'll fall back into the safe method of hiring, which will again produce results like you've always been getting.
Yeah, I think it's important that you always look at yourself first. But you know what? Let's jump into the data, because this is really the part that I think people should. We're in a data-driven environment. Everybody wants to measure data and look at data. So let's talk about what data should be measured. So if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm trying to figure out my business or what data do I need to look at?
Well, you look at your hiring process just like a funnel, just like your own sales funnel. Just like any other sales funnel, you're going to be looking at.
I'm a CEO as an engineer. I don't know what a sales funnel is.
A sales funnel, for those non-salesy folks, everybody's sales, and if you're not, you should be, or you are. But a sales funnel really is just all the way from the person who doesn't have any idea who you are, all the way through your happy client and beyond. So it's that funnel that you pull people through as you try to get them to become a customer. That's the same funnel that you're using when you're trying to attract employees to your company.
All right, so we're looking at things like what? We're looking at the amount of people interviewed.
Even beyond that, you really should be looking at your total employee market. So if within your local area, if you recruit software developers and you always have a need for those, we'll find out, okay, map your market. How many software developers are in your area, right, for one? In addition, when you do have a search.
All right, but we're getting too complex, though, because we are actually, I'm totally with you on this one. You're spot on, but we're getting into the data of, okay, so if I'm a recruiter, I need to know all this, but if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm looking at my hiring process, I really need to figure out what is wrong here. So let's look at the interview funnel. Let's get back to that, because I think that's really where we can add value. So what are we looking at in the interview funnel?
With the interview funnel, and again, I still think, look at your entire market, as well as how many people are coming into your funnel initially. But once people are in, it's a matter of, it depends on how you have your interview structure, your interview process structured, and if you're using outside recruiters. If you're using outside recruiters, take a look at their data. How many people are they contacting? How many people did they get into maybe initial conversations, right, just to pitch the opportunity? Of those, how many people are getting into a short list, meaning whether it might be video interview, phone interview, etc.
So
from there,
shortlist
how
is
we
getting
can-
them to an interview at your company, right?
That's the way I look at it, yes.
Okay.
So usually if you're using a recruiter, that's going to be typically a pre-recorded video interview. It's what we try to do with our clients, as well as, the interview notes,
Ooh.
Resume,
Okay, I'm
profile, all those things.
gonna say don't do a pre-recorded video interview because I hate those. I think they're a terrible measure of whether or not somebody's good. All right, so all right, so
Fair enough.
yeah, but this is why we have this show, right? We can agree to disagree. Yeah. You like it, I not so much. All right, so when we get to the interview funnel, we're looking at how many people get to the interview, and then get through the interview to what? To the offer stage, because that's really the most important thing. I mean, that's where companies lose people at the offer stage, but they actually lost them a lot further along in the process, like back in the process before they got to the offer stage. A lot of candidates will just collect offers just to compare, right?
100%. Well, it's just like, again, in the interview process, much like a sales call. So if, and again, if you're an entrepreneur, you'd be familiar with being on a sales call. You're not just interviewing the potential customer, but they're interviewing you. Same thing with a candidate. And so just like when you have a customer meeting or needs analysis, the customer's coming in, or in this case, the candidate's coming in, and they're looking for options, right? They want to take an option, which is what you have, and follow their way, along with all the other options that they're looking at. So if you are...
and an option would be like somebody's the opportunity, right?
Yeah, an opportunity, right?
Okay.
And the option is also staying with their current company as well. So if at the end of the day you want your offer to be accepted, throughout the process, your job is to get them to eliminate as many options as possible, so your company is the only option left that's viable if they want to accomplish what they want to accomplish, in essence.
And I agree with you, and that is super complex, but it's actually really simple if you think about it. It's just really solving that other person's problem or their pain points.
100%.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so let's...
And also find out where those pain points are.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to the data then. So if I'm trying to look at my company, I want to know where I'm losing people. I mean, it really comes down to offers put out that are accepted or rejected, right? And then stick rate. Those are like how long people stay with your company. If they're leaving within the first 90 days, you've got an issue. If you're making a lot of offers and people are not accepting them, you've got a major issue. If people are accepting them, but they're not really the best people, they're somewhat mediocre, then you've got an issue. I mean, there's tons of issues that are in here, right? Do you see any other data that should be measured besides those?
Yes. So you should also be doing, just like exit interviews with candidates that do leave. If they turn down an offer, well, for most people, they say, okay, well, you're dead to me.
Yeah.
No, let's get them on the phone and find out, okay, where do we lose you in the process? And compare that with your interview notes. Hopefully you're taking good notes and find out, okay, we've had 3 turn downs, and here's what they said, but here's what we heard in the interview. Sometimes don't say different things and what really happened, and you're trying to kind of investigate where things went wrong. And so sometimes it's hard to figure out, but if you're not taking good interview notes and not doing those exit interviews, if you will, at the end, they won't even know what to look for at all.
And you know what? You brought up a good point. You should always keep that door open, because people make bad decisions. They might go to a company because they got paid more money and then realize 3 weeks in that they made the wrong decision and they really wanted to be with you. So you definitely want to keep that door open.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
All right, you're listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. I'm your host, Rick Girard. For our podcast listeners, we're going to take a quick educational moment from our sponsors. To find out how healing a person's pain points attracts amazing people to your company, sign up for our passive talent workshops at stridesearch.com. Our guest today is Mr. David Patterson. He is the founder and managing partner of the Kineta Group and the SAPrecruiter.com. And we are talking about actually the data, we're talking about your hiring record and how to analyze it and how to figure it out and how to get it better. So the idea is that we want to get you to first recognize the fact that you have a broken interview process, which most people do, and what data you need to look at. And now we're going to help you fix it. How's that sound, David?
Sounds fantastic.
Yay. All right, cool. So Let's talk about how do we fix a broken hiring record. I mean, I think I do this and you do this for a lot of your clients, but let's help the audience kind of fix it for themselves. What do you think? Where do they start?
Well, look. Okay, so if I were trying to fix my hiring record, I would look again at my product or my opportunity as a product. It's a product, and I need to first find out what is everybody else hearing. What are all the other companies offering? And they're probably offering ping pong tables, and they're offering, we bring our dog to work on Fridays.
God, don't do that.
And all those things. Right?
Yeah.
What happens is we think it's cool, but what happens is it's like a monkey see, monkey do. Everybody else is doing it, so it's like, hey, me too. And so it ends up becoming a commodity. So if you look at the data, so why would someone go to work for you? Ultimately, they go to work for you because they're trying to solve maybe a career wound or a pain, or trying to accomplish something. Usually it's a combination of the two, a dream and a pain, right? And so I want to find out what are other companies offering, like what do they offer that I can maybe juxtapose myself against or offer something different, et cetera. But in addition, in my interview notes, as well as maybe connect interviews with other software developers in the area, let's say that's your market, I want to be finding out what are some of the common pains that they tend to have. Are there issues with equity, issues with maybe in that city it's commute, maybe it's whatever. Maybe
but you know what?
Technology.
You know what I get a lot though, Dave, and I don't know if you do, but I get almost probably 85 to 90% of my conversations that I have with people. The number one reason why they're looking for something is because they're limited on growth. They have no place to go. They're not able to do the work that they want to do, or something that they're passionate about. They feel like they're being held down. Do you get that a lot too?
Yeah, it's actually one of the most common ones. People want self-actualization. And by that I mean, your 9-to-5ers that really aren't looking for growth, maybe they don't. But usually the top performers, they want to feel like they are being challenged and grow. Yeah. So growth isn't necessarily meaning maybe it isn't necessarily meaning promotion, right? It could be taking over a new division, whatever it is. But usually it's that growth, and so
no. But it's also that growth is also like very specific to that person. It's really hard to kind of create a generalized message that's going to draw all those people in. I mean, because you don't know what's going on in that person's life.
Well, there's a bit of art and science to it. So it's just like with any product, right? You generally know what your customers like, what they don't like. So like 75, 80%. What the commonalities are, that's the science, and then the art is in the interview itself, being able to draw out that other 20-25% that is unique to them, just the brushstrokes on top. Yeah. And so it's a combination of the two, I think, right? But you have to know what the baseline is for a majority of the people in the industry, so that way at least you have somewhere to start.
But if you're an entrepreneur, you should be thinking, if I'm going to hire people, I should be looking to tackle that issue. How is my opportunity going to solve their problem? And it's usually centered in and around growth. Second and third would be the leadership at their current company. There might be some issues there. And then the third usually is somewhere in and around the content of the work. But that's kind of tied to growth as well.
Well, it's also leadership, right? People go to work for people. Yeah. And generally speaking, obviously you provide the growth and direction, but I always say if somebody's looking to grow, if somebody can get behind a shooting star, that's a huge plus for a lot of folks who want to have that mentorship and want that person they can follow behind, because that's going to help catapult them to further heights. So a lot of it also comes down to you personally. What's been your growth and what's been your own growth in the company, in the industry, et cetera, and how can that benefit them as well, right?
Okay. So you're doing it, I think we talked offline, you're doing it from a strategy perspective, really by creating the message, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct, yeah.
The other thing that we talked about was being polarizing. So talk a little bit about that, because you had an interesting perspective on being polarizing and the way you attract people.
Well, I think being polarizing is just a type of marketing. So it's kind of a long example. I know we're kind of short on time, so I'll make it really, really quick. But just like with any product or any service that's radically different than anybody else. You want to create this sort of us against them. We're the Mavericks against the entire industry sort of mentality. And the way I like the example I use is CrossFit. Not now, because it's ubiquitous, but back 20 years ago, no one heard of them, and they were such a radically different product. And they went and marketed to suburban moms who were doing spin classes. And what they did is they created this environment where they brought these moms in, got them doing squats and deadlifts and feeling like complete badasses. and they created this tribe of, we're better than you because we do this thing, and everybody else is.
Oh my God, that sounds like CrossFit. You invented CrossFit, didn't you?
But look, I tell you, it worked, didn't it?
Yeah.
But that's when you look at new products that are radically different, they commoditize themselves, and by doing that, they turn off a lot of the market that they probably don't want anyway. But attracts the ones that you want, right? So for me, for example, in my own service offering, or what I hire, I'm not for everybody. If I try to be for everybody, no one's going to want me because I'm like everybody else. I want to be radically different. I'm going to turn off a lot of the market, but I'm going to attract a lot. So when I sell, when I screen, I try to repel as much as I attract.
Yeah, so basically what you're doing is your values, who you are as a person, where you are. So your values equal your culture, in essence. Thank you, Dave Kinnear, for that one. And essentially, you're not trying to market to everybody. You're trying to market to your avatar, your best customer, the person who's going to thrive with you.
100%. And like I said, that also includes your next best employee. So they're going to want to work for that maverick. They're going to want to work for that person and see things the way they do, which is a little bit slightly off. That nobody else gets them, but you do, because you're just like them.
Got it.
And you have an environment where they can shine. And that's where I think you've got to, again, look at what everybody else offers and find these commonalities, and then try to juxtapose yourself differently against them, right? And do that first before you go out there with a generic job description like everybody else offering ping pong tables. Because no one really, at the end of the day, wants that, particularly if everybody else is offering the exact same thing.
Got it. All right, so when you analyze the data, what should somebody be shooting for? Like, what should be the benchmark that somebody looks at and goes, okay, my hiring process is working much more effectively than other people because, of X? What should they strive for?
Well, so every industry is different. So when I say what I look for, completely be radically different other industries. On an offer ratio, I look for a 1-to-1 because I don't want to be making an offer unless they are so rapidly excited about joining my company or my client, right? So on an offer ratio, 1-to-1. But With that said, on an interview to offer ratio, I might talk to 10 or 15 or 20 people before I even make an offer because I'm trying to turn away as many people as I'm attracting again.
Sure.
So that's the number I looked at. Others obviously may be different. But again, that's just the way, my own style of interviewing and hiring. Does that make sense? No,
I agree. I agree with you. I think, I shoot for, you're going to talk to a lot of people. I don't consider an interview until somebody goes on site and interviews with the company. So what we do as recruiters, we're usually the filter, the screeners, we're doing what is saving the time of the hiring manager, right? I look at myself as the protector of time for all my hiring managers. So I shoot for like a 4-to-1 interview to placement ratio. If I can submit 4 candidates and get one higher, then we're successful, right?
Okay. And so for me, when I say interview, I'm talking, so I guess I define a little bit different. So for me, an interview is going to be, okay, it's an official phone interview or a video interview or something along those lines where there is a back and forth question, answer.
Okay, got it.
Type deal.
Yeah, whatever form it is. All right, really quickly, just your 3 quick takeaways because we're running out of time here.
Sure. Really, ultimately, if you want to hire the kind of people, if you don't want to be a commodity employer, again, one, you have to be willing to step back and figure out fundamentally in your market what are the pains, fears, and dreams that drive the people in the market, and understand, kind of, again, the 80% commonalities, and to get that 20% of what really brings them in. I know we didn't cover this here, but be willing in the interview to ask some pretty hard questions about what's not working with their current environment, what's not working when the other opportunities are looking at, because again, you're looking to eliminate options. Okay.
Number two.
And then well, actually, that was 1 and 2. I think.
Okay, got it.
Step back, figure out the core area, and then on the interview, willing to pull those pains out. But third and last, be willing to be polarizing and trying to develop an environment or a culture that's almost like an us against them, because it will attract, especially if you have an actualizing environment, you will tend to attract those people that think differently. There's really high achievers. If you're looking for average run-of-the-mill, that's not going to work for you.
100%. And don't chase shiny objects. All right, we're just about out of time for today's show. David, thanks so much for your time and investment today. Now, what's the best way for members of our community to reach you?
Well, it depends on what they're looking to do. If they're looking to hire for SAP, you can find me at theSAPrecruiter.com. And if you are a recruiter, or really more like a search firm owner, you can find me on our Facebook group, the Headhunter and Executive Recruiter Community.
Awesome.
Also known affectionately as HERC. And
I'm part of that as well. Every once in a while, I drop my... Yeah, absolutely. So I want to thank our listening audience for tuning into this week's episode of Higher Power. A quick thanks to our team, our engineer, Paul Roberts, our producers, Andrea Ballin, Shanti Ryle, and Ayla Gerard. If you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe, review, and share. We are listening. We love your feedback. And after all, this show is for you, so keep it coming. You can join the Higher Power Radio community at Higher, that's H-I-R-E, Power, P-O-W-E-R, radio, radio.com, or you can drop me an email at rick@stridesearch.com to learn about our passive talent webinars and workshops. Tune in next week. We have a surprise guest for you. I'm not going to say who it is. I'm your host, Rick Gerard, and you have been listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. Aloha.
Thank you for listening to Higher Power with Rick Gerard on OC Talk Radio.